Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni signs a controversial law that scraps the age gap for presidential candidates. Will 2018 be a happy new year in robotics? And could this real-life transformer car be the solution to parking space shortages? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Northeast Nigeria was again the scene of a violent attack on Wednesday when a suicide bomber killed 11 people in a mosque, as according to military officials and an aid worker. The bomber hit the mosque during dawn prayers in the town of Gamboro in Borno State, near Nigeria's border with Cameroon. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, but it bears the hallmarks of Boko Haram, which frequently uses suicide bombers, often women and girls, to attack crowded public places such as mosques and markets. Now, despite repeated government and military assertions that the insurgency has been defeated, Boko Haram continues to carry out lethal attacks on the military and civilians. On Tuesday, shadowy Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau purportedly released a video message claiming a series of attacks in northeast Nigeria during the festive season. Israel says it will pay thousands of African migrants living illegally in the country to leave, threatening them with jail if they are caught after the end of March. The vast majority came from Eritrea and Sudan. Now, the plan launched this week offers African migrants a $3,500 payment from the Israeli government and a free air ticket to return home or go to a third country, which rights groups identified as Rwanda and Uganda. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in public remarks at a cabinet meeting on the payment program, cited the large presence of African migrants in Tel Aviv's poorer neighborhoods, where he said veteran residents, a reference to Israelis, no longer feel safe. To East Africa now, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has signed a law that scraps age 75 as the cap for presidential candidates. According to a parliament spokesperson, it's a move critics say will allow him to remain in power indefinitely. Museveni, 73, has ruled Uganda for 31 years and could now run again in the next election, due in 2021, despite increased public anger over corruption, human rights violations, and poor social services. Parliament, controlled by Museveni's ruling National Resistance Movement, approved the constitutional amendment on December 22nd amid heavy security deployments across the capital, Kampala, and outside Parliament. Some legislators opposed to the law tried unsuccessfully at various stages to filibuster, and some were suspended from proceedings. During the final debate on the amendment last month, some lawmakers scuffled with police. Well, the head of the Roman Catholic Church in the Democratic Republic of Congo is condemning a crackdown on protests against President Joseph Kabila as barbarism escalating a confrontation between the government and one of the country's most powerful institutions. Security forces in the DRC killed at least 7 people in the capital, Kinshasa, on Sunday during demonstrations that Catholic activists organized to protest Kabila's refusal to step down from office, according to the United Nations. The leader of the Union for Congolese Nation, Vital Kamerhe, had to be escorted out of St. Michael Church, Michel Church in Kinshasa on Sunday, as panic spread when tear gas was shot into the parish. In a rare appearance before the media, Cardinal Laurent Monseigneur Passigner accused security forces of opening fire on peaceful protesters and desecrating places of worship. Now, a U.S. military airstrike has killed 2 militants in Somalia. The military's Africa Command said Wednesday that Tuesday's attack targeted Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda-linked Islamist group that is fighting to topple the UN-backed government. Africa Command says the strike took place around 50 kilometers west of Mogadishu, and that a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device had also been destroyed in the early morning airstrike. Last month, Washington warned of a threat to its diplomatic staff in Mogadishu and directed all non-essential staff to leave the city. After days of anti-government protests over the nation's economic woes, Iranian state television showed video Wednesday of pro-government rallies from areas across the country. The crowds waved Iranian flags and chanted in support of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Khamenei has blamed other governments for driving the anti-government protests that began last week and have left at least 21 people dead. U.S. President Donald Trump has used several Twitter posts to express support for those protesting at the Iranian government. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, in an interview with VOA contributor Greta Van Susteren on Tuesday, said that the Iranian government has to be held accountable for its actions. Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, said the Iranian protests, which have claimed at least 21 lives in the last 6 days, should be on the UN Security Council's agenda.
If the Iranian dictatorship's history is any guide, we can expect more outrageous abuses in the days to come. The UN must speak out. In the days ahead, we will be calling for an emergency session, both here in New York and at the Human Rights Council in Geneva. We must not be silent. The people of Iran are crying out for freedom. All freedom-loving people must stand with their cause.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed his regret at the bloodshed in Iran, saying the UN expects the rights to peaceful assembly and expressions of the Iranian people will be respected. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani vowed on Monday that security forces will respond to rioters and lawbreakers. Hundreds of demonstrators have been arrested since the protests began Thursday in Mashhad before spreading to other parts of the country. Now, the U.S. will no longer accept contradictions in its relationship with Pakistan. That's according to White House National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. The comment comes as Pakistanis react angrily to President Donald Trump, who threatened to withhold U.S. aid in response to what he says is Islamabad's support for terrorist groups. VOA's Bill Gallo reports.
Anti-American slogans and burning U.S. flags in the southern city of Karachi. That in response to a Donald Trump tweet accusing Pakistan of lies and deceit and of harboring terrorists.
This is really our effort to communicate clearly to Pakistan that our relationship can no longer bear the weight of contradictions, and that we have to really begin now to work together to stabilize Afghanistan in a way that would be a huge benefit to Pakistan as well.
The U.S. has long accused Pakistan of sheltering terrorists that carry out attacks on U.S. troops in Afghanistan. But that criticism has intensified dramatically.
The administration is withholding $255 million in assistance to Pakistan. There are clear reasons for this. Pakistan has played a double game for years. They work with us at times, and they also harbor the terrorists that attack our troops in Afghanistan. That game is not acceptable to this administration.
That language is winning praise in Afghanistan.
It proves the just cause of our fight against terrorism.
Pakistan on Tuesday summoned the U.S. ambassador and complained that Trump's tweets were incomprehensible. Bill Gallo, VOA News, Washington.
Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We are also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends also. And check out our headlines 24/7 at voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now coming up, what's next in robotics industry? Stay with us.
Health news and notes. This is Living Better.
Lots of people start their day with a cup of coffee, and drinking more than that can be good for you, says University of Southampton's Robin Poole.
Headline benefits such as a lower risk of dying from any cause, a lower risk of dying from heart disease and stroke, and a lower risk of developing heart disease in the first place. And for those outcomes, the maximum benefit was around 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day.
The British scientists collated evidence from hundreds of studies and found that coffee consumption was linked to lower risks for diabetes, liver disease, dementia, and some cancer. But while coffee can be good for you, the team warns that coffee lovers need to be aware of everything they consume.
Our research has been about coffee. It's not about the sugar and the syrups and the biscuits, cakes and pastries.
Coffee is one of the most common drinks in the world, with an estimated 2 billion cups consumed every day. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Now, while the attention of much of the world was occupied with earthly happenings, space scientists had some notable achievements last year, ranging from new projects to the spectacular end of at least one program. VOA's George Putic reviews the highlights of the year in space.
Let's start with the glorious end of a very successful mission. The deep space probe Cassini-Huygens was directed to burn in Saturn's atmosphere so it would not contaminate its moons with microbes from Earth that inevitably hitch a ride on all spacecraft. It spent 20 years exploring Jupiter and Saturn, landing a probe on Saturn's moon Titan and discovering water on another moon, Enceladus. What scientists said in 2004 applies to all of Cassini's discoveries.
I don't think you have to be a ring scientist to imagine what last night was for us. It was beyond description, really. It was mind-blowing. It was every adjective you could think of.
One notable launch this year was the European Space Agency satellite Sentinel-5 Precursor. It will monitor air pollution caused by both man-made and natural activities, alerting people about concentration of pollutants that may affect their health.
It's about understanding the sources of these trace gases, these pollutants, where they're coming from, how they're linked to man-made and natural activities.
Aboard the International Space Station, NASA astronauts performed their 200th spacewalk, and astronaut Peggy Whitstone set a new U.S. record for time spent in space. On Earth, scientists were busy preparing new important missions for 2018. Among them, the James Webb Infrared Telescope, which will be able to look at newly discovered Earth-sized planets around distant stars.
We'll use Webb to study the atmospheres of those planets to look and see what chemical constituents those atmospheres have. Is there water there? Is there ozone, perhaps?
Good thing that the new telescope will be positioned 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, because as German scientists warned this year, the space around our planet is becoming increasingly polluted with space junk.
The energy contained in a 1 centimeter particle hitting a satellite at that velocity roughly corresponds to an exploding grenade.
Scientists have proposed a number of ideas for reducing the amount of the space debris, but so far none have been selected. George Putic, VOA News.
Well, the robotics industry has made impressive advancements, at least in 2017, and that's expected to continue as robots are becoming more sophisticated, doing more complicated tasks and spreading almost everywhere. Here's Faith Lapidus.
Advancements in technology have made it possible for robots to efficiently carry out a wide variety of complicated tasks, whether at the workplace or at home. That didn't happen overnight. Humans have been working for centuries on creating robots. Last February, an exhibit at London's Science Museum traced 500 years of robotic development, showing how far we've come in this industry and how far we can still go. Visitors to a Berlin gallery got a chance to find out. The 5 Robots Named Paul exhibit in February gave visitors a chance to find out what they would look like when 5 robots with different points of view drew their portrait. Residents in Washington, D.C. have become familiar with food delivery robots, walking side by side with them on the street. The CeBIT Digital Business Fair in Hanover in March showcased a future where robots serve coffee.
You go, get it, and you get back to your work. If it's a person, he talks to people. It's good personal touch, but it delays you from your work.
In the United Kingdom, a company developed a smart robotic pet named Miro that uses artificial intelligence to interact with humans. And in South Korea, robots roamed the country's largest airport this past summer. At the InnoRobo Robotics event in Paris, so-called cobots, collaborative robots, were lending a helping hand. In Bucharest, Romania, a humanoid DIY robot was unveiled last May. In Belgium, a robot like this could improve a surgeon's precision by up to 10 times. All signs were pointing to a fully robotic future in manufacturing and engineering at the World Robot Conference in Beijing. A robotic conductor stole the show at a performance by renowned tenor Andrea Bocelli in the Italian city of Pisa. The unique show at the city's historic Teatro Verdi was part of the International Robotics Festival. In Japan, as hotels are gearing up for the 2020 Olympics by recruiting new helpers to ensure the best customer experience, one hotel is introducing robots to deliver room service. The advances are exciting and happening almost everywhere. But are we ready to lose our jobs to these machines? Some people have already been replaced by robots representing the latest in artificial intelligence.
As a new piece of automation comes in, people just move to something else that only at that time humans can do.
Advances in the robotics industry will continue, as will people's excitement and concerns at the changes. For writer Faisal Masri, I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
Well, now, entrepreneurs in the United States are developing a new online cross-border trade between the U.S. and Africa due to recent demand for goods between the two regions. At Silicon Valley's eBay headquarters, head of U.S. exports Thomas Ponce de Leon is eyeing a new venture. It's the Made for Africa eBay storefront, which sells jewelry, clothes, and crafts all from Africa. It's a two-way street allowing U.S. vendors to get into Africa too. Now, the driving force behind Mall for Africa is Nigerian-American Chris Folayan, who created the African-made product standard to guarantee authenticity and quality of the goods that come from Africa. The site allows African buyers to buy products from more than 200 stores in the U.S. Folayan came up with the idea when he was prevented from flying to Nigeria with 10 suitcases filled with U.S. products, even though he was willing to pay for the excess baggage. De Leon sees a big potential in this market.
The African e-commerce market is estimated at 24 billion, and it's growing at 25% on a year-over-year basis.
It dawned on me that every time I went back home, I kept taking more and more suitcases. So people had access, they knew what they wanted, and they wanted to buy products directly from the U.S. But they could see it, they could find it on the internet, but nobody shipped to the continent. So for payments, we created something called the Mall for Africa web card, which is pretty much our own payment platform. So we allowed people to pay in local currency, because a big thing is many people don't have credit cards in Africa.
Well, our Mall for Africa is also incorporating their concept into another brand that is called Mall for the World, which helps bring U.S. and African products into markets worldwide. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, the shape-shifting car that makes finding parking so much easier. We'll be right back.
In South Africa, a hiker and a guide are dead and another hiker injured after an accident on Table Mountain in Cape Town. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, Cardinal Laurent Mosego condemns the crackdown on protests against President Joseph Kabila as barbarism. In Mali, President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta names Soumaïlou Boubèye Maïga as the new prime minister after Abdoulaye Idrissa Maïga resigned unexpectedly on Friday. In Egypt, Liverpool forward Mohamed Salah named 2017 Arab Player of the Year in a poll of 100 sports journalists from Arab countries. Finally, in Ivory Coast, footballer Salomon Kalou gives patients in his native country a new shot at life with charitable foundation funding research on kidney failure.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Now, shared bicycles have arrived in Beijing, but not everyone's happy. The two-wheelers are unlocked and tracked using smartphone apps and can be rented for as little as 7 US cents for half an hour. But as more and more bikes hit the streets, they add to the urban chaos. Riders leave them basically anywhere. Rows of bikes clutter sidewalks, leaving pedestrians little space to walk. China overtook the United States in 2009 as the world's biggest auto market, but authorities have encouraged bicycle use to reduce pollution and congestion. Well, next up, a prototype chemical sniffer system that detects criminal substances such as illegal drugs or explosives and the chemical precursors used to make them has been developed by researchers at the Technical University of Denmark. Researchers have tailor-made chips to look for specific narcotics or chemicals used in homemade explosives. Will this new tech put bomb-sniffing dogs out of business? Well, we'll wait and see. Stay with us. Well, and finally, finding a parking space may soon become much easier thanks to a car that can fold itself up and squeeze into spaces, very small spaces. Inspired by the Transformer toys, this electric vehicle is called Earth One. Tokyo-based next-generation car design and manufacturing company 4Link Systems says they hope Earth One will get approval to drive on the roads by March, and that despite costing as much as high-end Lexus at $70,000. The company has already accepted 30 orders from clients from Japan, China, and Dubai, and that's what is trending today. Now, when you think about fine wine, what countries come to mind? France, Italy. What about China? Well, by 2020, China could become the world's second largest wine consumer behind the United States. That's according to a report by VineExpo, a leading wine exhibition. VOA's Chu Wu visited California's wine country to hear what winemakers and drinkers had to say.
Pop the cork. Pour the wine. Swirl. Sniff. Sip. Savor. The steps for appreciating fine wine are becoming familiar to Chinese who are looking for an alternative to China's traditional grain-based spirits.
Nowadays, many people in China have given up baijiu, normal baijiu, because wine has enough alcohol. But it's also good for health. It can soften the human's blood vessels. People are changing.
Wang is not alone. Chinese are visiting Northern California's Napa Valley wine region in numbers never seen before.
It's interesting because the Chinese market in Napa is the fastest growing international market that we have, according to the statistics from our Napa Valley, Visit Napa Valley, our visitor bureau here in Napa Valley. China was the #1 international market in the Napa Valley last year.
A must-see stop for Chinese tourists is the Yao Family Wines Vineyard, owned by retired basketball star Yao Ming. Yao's celebrity aside, his wines have won praise from leading wine critic Robert Parker.
The Cabernet Sauvignon is very nice. The taste is great.
About an hour's drive to the east, the University of California, Davis has one of the country's top programs for the science of growing grapes and winemaking.
From what I can see, there were not many Chinese students previously, but now in my class and also among those who came after me, there are now many more Chinese.
Compared to famous wine regions like nearby Napa and Bordeaux in France, these Chinese students believe that the wine industry will have a more promising future in their homeland.
In Asia, especially in China, people are getting richer. This is one factor.
Wine in China is just starting. Before, we imported a lot of wine, and now we start to build new vineyards. The grape vines are still growing. It's like a newborn baby. Chinese wine carries a lot of hope.
Hope that has some of these students thinking that their first jobs might not be here in California's wine country, but building a new wine country back home in China. Chi Wu, VOA News, Napa Valley, California.
Now, growing older can be tough on the mind and body, but some elderly women in South Africa are stepping into the boxing ring for a workout that is helping them knock out the effects of aging. VOA's Arasha Obasadi reports.
These grannies are training for the fight of their lives.
The advice I give to other grannies like me is that they should leave the old way of telling themselves that they are old and that they are grannies, and to try their best. Just because you are a granny does not mean you need to burden yourself with that word, granny. You need to wake yourself up and show that you are a granny with life.
In a suburb of South Africa's capital, Johannesburg, these 75 to 80-year-old women fight against the aches and pains of aging while keeping their bodies fit.
They're taking care of their grandchildren, cleaning the house, some of them. So most of them we thought that boxing is the one that will also make them relax, make them think, make them young again.
It all started 5 years ago with a special aerobic exercise training program at the gym.
We're doing fitness. So our Coco, they were interested to also do fitness. They saw my gloves and then they just tried them on. And then since from there, they never stopped.
Boxing was an immediate knockout that seemed to turn back the hands of time.
I feel young. I feel like I'm 16, but my age is 18. Yes.
The club is, of course, good exercise for members, but it's also therapeutic for 76-year-old Jermina Maluleka, who was recently diagnosed with cancer. She says boxing gives her new hope for the future.
The gym has helped me through my illness. When I started out, I had a problem with my feet. I used to have swollen feet. Since I started going to the gym, I do not have that problem anymore. I never used to have a problem with my knees, with my legs, but the gym has helped me a lot.
Grannies toning up while learning self-defense, inspiring a younger generation, trainers say, to get fit at an earlier age. Arasha Arbasadi, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A lot of American English idioms refer to parts of the body.
Get off on the wrong foot.
Are Anna and Jonathan having trouble learning a dance? How did it go meeting your girlfriend's family?
Well, it was interesting. First, I was really late.
Oh, Jonathan.
Yeah, and then at dinner I spilled my water all over